The B-17, the Flying Fortress. The only thing more beautiful than this famous warbird? The nose art painted on her by the men that flew her. So often, though, these pieces of artwork are lost to time. But not if I have anything to say about it. Today, we have chosen 5 of the best nose art designs on B-17s, recreated the aircraft with stunning detail, and will tell their stories. Let's jump in.
You probably enjoy the stories from World War II, or you wouldn't be here, would you? But the absolute best way to read and learn about history isn't from videos or history books, but from handwritten first-hand accounts. That's why this holiday season I've started Letters from War. Letters from War is a monthly history package themed just like 1940s mail that is delivered right to you. Inside, you will find a copy of a handwritten letter from a World War II soldier, just like this actual Christmas card delivered in 1944. In addition, each package also includes a recreated postcard, maps, propaganda flyers, or copies of other historical documents relating to the letter, as well as a monthly history quiz, so you can test your knowledge and learn about the stories of our heroes. And best of all, since this is my personal project, all proceeds will go straight back into the channel here, funding more great content as well as interviews of actual World War II veterans. So if you or someone you know might love history delivered right to their doorstep, click the link below and join Letters from War. And thanks for supporting our work. Now, without further ado, enjoy.
The first bomber that we have chosen today is a B-17 by the name of Double Trouble. This fortress was built in 1942 and was assigned to the 94th Bomb Group, operating out of Rougham Airfield in England. Shortly after being assigned to the 333rd Squadron, some of the men in this unit painted this beautiful design on her. It is in fact quite rare to find a piece of nose art that has 2 pin-up girls, which is one of the reasons that I chose this for today's list. Her artist executed this design perfectly, and the name is obviously fitting. Double Trouble and her crew participated in the bombing of Fortress Europe for 4 months, beginning in June of 1943. But on a fall day of that year, she would fly her last mission. On October 4th of 1943, the 94th was sent to bomb Frankfurt, Germany. But en route, the raid was reported, and an intercept party was scrambled. This would be Messerschmitt Me-109 fighters of JG-27. At around 11:30 a.m., the B-17s of the 94th Bomb Group spotted the Luftwaffe fighters against the white of the sky, and the attack began. In this fight, the Messerschmitts would focus in on Double Trouble, landing multiple good hits on her airframe, and particularly her right wing. The possible culprit in this attack may have been a 109 flown by Otto Meyer, a skilled ace who claimed one B-17 downed over this same area at approximately this time. After he and the other Germans in his unit pulled off the attack, Double Trouble lost her number 3 engine, causing her to fall behind the rest of the formation. However, she would not give up. Pilot William S. Winishek believed that he could make it all the way across the channel, and so he did not give the order to bail out, but instead carried on, alone, all the way back over France and across the Atlantic, slowly losing altitude the entire way. As she finally crossed the coast of England, Winishek brought down Double Trouble near Kent, with the wheels up for a crash landing. It was well executed, and only one of the crew was injured in this mission. Here we can see a photo of this beautiful bomber resting on the ground shortly after the landing. Unfortunately, however, Double Trouble was damaged beyond repair and was written off, never to fly again. The second bomber on our list for today is a very famous fortress, this time from the 91st Bomb Group. This would be Miss Washita. And I have actually tried to do some research here on what the name Miss Washita means, but haven't really had any luck. I do know that Washita is the name of a mountain range and national park in the United States. Possibly one of the crew members simply had a girl back home from that region. But regardless, on the side of the bomber, one of the grounds crew painted a banner and pin-up with this very name. And you might be thinking, this nose art looks familiar, and you would be right. This would be the B-17 Flying Fortress that was infamously featured in a series of German propaganda photos in 1944. This would occur after combat on February 22nd of 1944. This would be on day 3 of the famous Big Week. This was the 8th Air Force's massive aerial bombardment of Europe in February that was designed to cripple the Luftwaffe, both in the air and on the ground. This particular mission would see various aircraft production plants as the targets, but as the bombers neared Germany, cloud cover frustrated the bombing efforts, and the payloads were actually dropped into open fields to avoid high civilian casualties. However, the massive bomber force would not get out of their mission unscathed. German fighter opposition was very heavy, and particularly the fortresses of the 91st would be hit the hardest by Messerschmitt Me-109s. And to make matters worse, this was a seasoned group of German pilots, including a legendary German ace, Heinz Bahr. As the 109s dove in to strike the B-17s, the unfortunate bomber that ended up in the gun sights of Heinz Bahr would be Miss Washita, flown by 2nd Lieutenant Spencer Osterberg. Bahr would hit Miss Washita hard, and she took heavy damage. She quickly fell from the formation with 2 of her crew already dead on board from the heavy fire that she absorbed. Here we can see the details of the brutal fate of one of these crew members, Lambert Brostrom. The last contact he made was calling out fighters at 4 o'clock. Then he fired and a fighter blew up. But after that, he did not respond to further contact. It was discovered moments later that he took a direct hit from a 20mm cannon. Bahr watched as the B-17 lost altitude and eventually was just above the trees, where she crash-landed in the German countryside. Being that Bahr had just been transferred from the Eastern Front a few months earlier, this was one of his very first heavy bomber kills. And because of this being such an occasion, he watched it go down, noting the location, and shortly after landing himself, traveled to visit the crash site of the mighty bomber that he had just brought down. With the surviving 9 crew members already taken prisoner, Bahr walked around the plane, resting on the ground, and here this famous photo was snapped, a hunter inspecting his prey. This photo, along with a few others that were taken, were used prominently in a series of German propaganda photos, showing that the German pilots were bringing down the American bombers and that they were doing well in the fight to defend the Reich. For the next fortress on our list, we will go to a bomber with a very unique piece of art. While the preferred painting of aircraft was most certainly pin-up girls, this was not always the case. Here we can see our next fortress, with about the farthest thing possible from a beautiful woman. This is the Flying Hobo. A member of the 305th Bomb Group, flown by 2nd Lieutenant Fred Jones, this B-17 was sent on a raid to Bremen on November 26th of 1943. Bremen, a city known for being heavily defended, would live up to its name on this date. The flak here was heavy, as expected, but also, even more of a threat, they were intercepted by German fighters. These would be Focke-Wulf 190s of JG-11. Here, one of their experienced aces, Siegfried Zieck, dove his 190 into the combat box as they began their bombing run. He singled out one B-17 and hit it hard with a single burst. This was the Flying Hobo. According to the missing aircrew reports from this plane, we can see the tail gunner, Joseph Daly, calling out Focke-Wulf fighters, and shortly after that, the bomber was hit and began to spin. In this spin, Don Cameron, the right waist gunner, was tapped on the shoulder by left waist gunner Paul Gay, alerting him that it was now time to bail out, since his communications had been lost. Unfortunately, Gay himself was hit just a few moments later, where he was last seen lying on the floor between ammo boxes. Cameron, however, was able to escape, bailing out and becoming a prisoner of war. He would be the only survivor from the Flying Hobo, with the rest of the crew killed as she struck the ground near Oldenburg. For the final spots in this episode, we will look at 2 bombers at once, and you will see why in just a few moments. The first pair would be B-17 Liberty Bell of the 487th Bomb Group. Liberty Bell has a flair of patriotic spirit, with a pinup girl boasting an American flag. Here she can be seen with her aircrew in 1944. The second would be B-17 Heavenly Body, also of the 487th. Heavenly Body, on the other hand, is quite obviously just that, a heavenly body. Now, to be honest, this is actually the only photo that I could find existing of the nose art on this B-17. So, as far as recreations go, we had to do our best here. This is a rather unique design with a pretty intricate background, but I think that we nailed it. And I truly like this piece of nose art with a pinup resting on the moon. This is also the kind of artwork that would have been censored or covered up when the bombers were eventually sent back home. And this fact may also explain why there are no other existing photos of it, as many in the Army did not like photos of fully nude women making it all the way back home to the public. But nonetheless, here she is. And now you might notice that these two bombers are straight aluminum instead of the olive drab. And this is because these bombers are from the later months of the war, in the fall of 1944. As the war went along, the Army eventually came to the realization that the extra weight of the paint was not worth the value of the camouflage, and so it was removed over time to increase speed and save fuel. This is why nearly all late war bombers are this aluminum color. On September 30th of 1944, the 487th Bomb Group was assigned to strike a target near Bielefeld, Germany. Shortly after they hit this target, however, tragedy would strike. According to the reports that were later written, prop wash and thick contrails made it difficult for Liberty Bell to maintain control. While she was flying in formation, suddenly she was thrown into a spin, where she rolled on her back and collided with another B-17 in the combat box. This B-17 was Heavenly Body. The report for this incident details the collision as follows. It is believed that heavy contrails and prop wash was the cause of this aircraft going over on its back, colliding with aircraft 154 while in a sharp right turn, breaking right wing off this aircraft and left wing off of aircraft 154. Both B-17s went into a spin and disappeared into the clouds. 6 shoots were observed. The bombers immediately broke apart upon impact, going down in a tangled mess of smoke and metal. In a testament to just how violent this crash actually was, the radio operator of Liberty Bell, one of the only survivors of the incident, actually replied no on his after-action report to the question of, "Did you bail out?" He instead replied that he was actually thrown clear of the aircraft. He simply happened to be wearing his parachute. After landing on the ground, he was taken prisoner, where he was informed by German interrogation officers that 15 of his comrades had been killed. This assessment would be correct. Of the 18 total crew members on board of these two bombers, only 3 would survive, as both Heavenly Body and Liberty Bell fell to their demise. Fascinatingly though, in my research, I was also able to locate one more photo that is terribly dark and ironic. That is this photo here. We can see the Liberty Bell showing off her nose art, but if we look closely and zoom in behind and see the serial number on this B-17, this is none other than Heavenly Body. It is a dark coincidence that would foreshadow their tragic fate. The brutal stories like this one would go on to show just how deadly these missions truly were, and that enemy fire was far from the only threat to these brave airmen. If you enjoyed these stories, please comment on what you would like to see, more B-17 nose art, or even other aircraft. Consider supporting me on Patreon here, and I'll see you next time.